Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today from upstate New York, and we were just discussing his restoration project for a couple of old flintlock rifles. Dan Wos, of course, he's the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy series of books. Dan, thanks for coming along today, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Paul.
As we get started, as I usually do, I want to remind everybody, if you want to get in on the conversation, go ahead and comment on the live videos. I am hooking up social media as we speak. If you're watching on the Polite Society podcast, Facebook, or YouTube feeds, you can comment directly on those videos. We'll get them right away. Anywhere else, go ahead and comment. I may get those right away. I may not. If you want to get your comments in and you don't see me put them on the screen, just go to the Polite Society podcast Facebook feeds, comment there, and we'll get those up. Dan, first thing I want to talk about is an article that's one of yours off of Ammo Land, uncovering the ghost gun fear campaign. It seems like lately, and we do have a news story coming up after this, lately it's been all-out assault, so to speak, on ghost guns.
Yeah.
Basically, something that's been done since before the founding of our nation, making your own firearm. You want to go into your article a little bit, man?
Yeah, well, it's been an American tradition, make your own guns. And the idea behind the ghost gun thing, what they're using is the 3D printers as the culprit. And the idea is to scare people into thinking that there's these ghost guns everywhere. People don't really know what a ghost gun. A lot of people don't really know what a ghost gun is. What the actual thing is it's anything that's untraceable, any firearm that's untraceable by the government. So what they do is they create legislation to cover all untraceable firearms by using 3D printed guns as the culprit. Which, how many people are out there actually committing crimes and murders with 3D printed guns?
The number's not zero, but it's right next to it.
Yeah, it's not a lot. 99.9% of guns that are used in crimes have serial numbers. And so the idea here is to create a scare by using the 3D printed concept, and give it a scary name called ghost guns for people who don't know any better, so they can be scared, so they can support gun legislation, and then convince people that the solution to this so-called problem that really doesn't exist is serialization. Well, people will say, oh, well, great, well, that's fine. Yeah, why don't, I think we should. I think all guns should be serialized. That way you can track them. Well, the problem with that is the reason behind the serialization is to create a tracking system. So they use ghost guns and 3D printers to scare people into supporting serialization, which really would ultimately end up as a registry and a tracking system. And the question I have for everybody is, since most guns are stolen, are these people who are stealing guns and committing crimes, since most guns that are used in crimes are stolen, are they really going to register those guns after they steal them? And the answer is no. So
no, yeah, of course.
Serialization and registration will do nothing to stop crime. 3D printed guns are not the problem, and really what they're looking for is a gun registry, and this is just another way of getting it, so scare everybody into believing that these so-called ghost guns are lurking around every corner. Just another charade.
I didn't see it in your article, but I'm sure you're aware that where this ghost gun thing and where the government is getting most of their numbers for ghost guns is coming from very large metropolitan police departments. And I know for a fact in Los Angeles, for example, if anybody takes some sandpaper or a Dremel and tries to remove the serial number off the firearm, they're calling that a ghost gun.
Of course. Of course. So that's a great example. It's not about 3D printed guns, which they're trying to make it look like it is. It's about any gun that can't be tracked and traced by the government. And they know that they're not going to be able to track or trace the bad guys' guns. So whose guns are they really looking to track and trace?
Oh, yeah.
All Lathrop's and Dan Wos's. You know, that's the idea behind this whole thing. It's the biggest charade. It's such a bunch of nonsense. And yet the amazing thing is there's so many people who fall right in line and agree with such ridiculous policies and think that this is a good idea. There are people who actually believe that gun serialization and gun registration is a good idea. Our founding fathers never had any intention of anybody knowing who has guns and the home addresses where they could be found. This was not part of the plan.
I think our founding fathers had more of an idea of everybody had firearms, mostly because to have a well-regulated militia, everybody had to have and be proficient with their firearms. So when the founding fathers were around, it wasn't serialization so we can track them. It's you'd better have one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they realized that it was young men of militia age, which was anywhere from 16. I'm going to guess here, but anywhere probably from 16 to 20, 21, 22, whatever, somewhere in that range. There were young men who were fighting the Revolutionary War. And another thing that they're pushing for right now is to raise the age to own a handgun, or any gun for that matter, to 21. What they're trying to do, it would seem to me, by watching their behavior, not listening to their words, watching their behavior, it would seem to me that they're trying to restrict and prevent those of militia age from possessing firearms. Now, why would they want to do that?
You know, there are, and we're going to get to a story later. Let's do this right away. Speaking of ghost guns, I want to get to let me get to some comments here real quick. First by Gerald, he says, thereafter the ability to buy spare parts. So yeah, if you can't manufacture your own firearm, then of course you can't swap barrels, you can't change a stock on a rifle, you can't, that kind of thing. And there
was another thing. Colorado Governor Jared Polis signed Senate Bill 279 into law banning the manufacture, possession, and sale of non-serialized firearms and firearms parts. So they are talking about parts. This is about anything that could possibly turn into a gun. They want to know where it can be found. That's all.
Well, and as you and I both know, that could be, there are machines out there. You buy a billet of aluminum, you buy a billet block of aluminum, it'll turn it into a fully functional frame for an AR or a Glock or a M&P. And there are also, I don't know that I would rely on them, but you can 3D print plastic AR receivers, and I suppose if you do it with the right plastic, it might work for more than several rounds. But this whole thing just bothers me. It's none of the government's darn business who has and who doesn't have the firearms. It should be the government's supposition that everybody does.
Yeah, well, and it never was any of the government's business. Another thing that's interesting, as we look at this, the whole push, the ghost gun scare, the push for serialization and registration, also simultaneously over on the other, in another area, they're working on red flag laws. So, red flag laws are basically the confiscation of guns without due process. You
Yeah.
can just a mere accusation by just about anyone can give the cops and the judge the ability and authority to go into the house and take the guns. So the thing that I'm noticing is that they're working these simultaneously. This registry through serialization and red flag laws at the same time. And it makes sense because before you can confiscate guns, you need to know where they're located. So red flag laws for confiscation, ghost gun scare, and serialization for location.
Yeah, I'm get another comment in here real quick. CNT Designs and Arms. By the way, I did get your email, CNT. I did reply. Get back to me when you can. Um, the ATF wanted to define readily convertible as 8 hours in a machine shop. Yeah, 8 hours in a machine shop, I can turn a total wreck of a firearm into something that's brand new. Um, yeah,
Well, that's the thing. They want people to think that that everyone's all these. It's really the people in gangs who are committing most of the crimes, the gun-related crimes, and they want you to think that everybody is printing these guns at their kitchen table. As a matter of fact, I wrote in the article that I wrote called "Uncovering the Ghost Gun Fear Campaign for Ammo Land." There was a quote by New York District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Many people know who he is. He's the one who has been going after President Trump relentlessly. But Alvin Bragg said, "You quote, you can sit at your kitchen table and print out weapons of destruction." End quote. Well, it's not really that simple.
no, it's
They
not.
make it sound like you can print it out like you can print it out a paper document.
Um, I want to bounce something off you, Dan, and I was thinking about this a lot today. If if the gun grabbers get everything they want and everybody turns in their guns, the bad guys are still going to have them. What happens when the bad guys use theirs up? Well, in order to totally make the utopia that they want to have, there's two things that need to happen. First and foremost, they need to shut down the border because drugs and guns are coming north just as guns are. There were, if you can, the Obama administration was sending guns south across the border. If you think there are no guns coming north of the border, you're nuts. And if you eliminate the supply up here, the guns are going to come rushing across the border. There will be a market for them because the bad guys will want them. First thing they got to do is shut down the darn border. And I say they move that first before they go for any gun confiscation. That'll solve a world of problems right there.
Yeah, and I think, let's just hypothesize here and imagine if there was a massive gun ban somehow, if they were able to ever get it through something like Australia. I think in America, I think you would be creating a lot of criminals
Oh, yeah.
because, in Australia and Canada, um, great people there, but they don't have a Second Amendment. They don't have a constitution like we do. This is in our blood. Freedom is in our blood, and I think it would be really detrimental to our psyche as Americans. So I think what would happen is you would have a rebellion like you would never see in any other country, because taking something like that away that we've had since our founding would be catastrophic to our psychology, and I think people you would create a lot of criminals, and I think it would be total chaos. Um, I hope it never comes to that.
Oh, me too. I sincerely hope that we never come to an open revolution or a shooting war, and we don't have to. We really don't have to. Um, Things are going to turn out well for us. The only thing that needs to happen for us to win this fight are, well, there are two things right now. Number one, we've got to maintain the current Supreme Court. Number two, we need to get somebody in the Oval Office the next time the elections roll around that will continue to appoint originalist justices to that
Yeah.
Supreme Court. I very much believe we've got some judges that are very much getting up there in age. There's going to be retirements in the next 10 years or so. We need to maintain good originalist judges on the Supreme
You
Court, and
know,
if we can do that, we're gonna get all the way back to the 1934 Firearms Act. We're gonna have all of those drop away for constitutional purposes.
yeah, and I think that Judge Justice Clarence Thomas's historical tradition is gonna be probably enough to start chipping away at that at the NFA. And I also think we don't always realize how valuable Trump was, whether you like him or not, for putting Kavanaugh and Barrett on the Supreme Court. Changed everything. I don't know if we realize just how important the Supreme Court is, because when the Democrats get power, and they can do a lot of damage, and that's our last line of defense. And
Yeah.
Trump did a great thing for us.
Get a couple more comments in here quick. Going back to closing the border, Gerald says they are making automatic weapons in Mexico. They certainly are, and a lot of the weapons they're getting in Mexico that are automatic, they're stealing because we sent them to the Mexican military who lost them. And oh, gee, they turned up in the arms of the cartels. Imagine that. Um, One more from C&T. Take away guns. Take guns away, knives will be king. Take knives away, clubs will be king, and on and on. It's just a reverse of how weapons developed through history. Um, and you know, Dan, in a lot of areas around the world, I'm specifically thinking about England and more specifically about London. Strong armed robbery is a terrible problem there. And all violent crime is a terrible problem there because I'm not 24 anymore. I could not physically take on a young man who's very fit and in his 20s. And I don't know if I'm not going to speak for you, but I wouldn't look forward to somebody coming to take my wife away, and all I've got is my brains and my fists to take them on.
Hell no! I was chopping wood the other day, and I'm in pain. Yeah, I'm not, I'm not going to be rolling around exchanging punches with anybody on the pavement. Forget it. You know. Um, so that's you're right. That's the beauty of being able to own and carry a firearm. You have that leverage, and you need that leverage to protect, like you said, like your wife, your family. Um, that's the one of the best parts of the Second Amendment. It's just we have the right to defend our lives. It's that simple. God gives us life. What? We're not supposed to defend it? Are you kidding me? The most precious thing in the world is our lives. We can't. No, I don't think so. We can defend our lives with whatever means possible. And luckily, our founding fathers recognized that. They wrote it down in the Second Amendment. And but yeah, I agree with you. I do not want to be rolling around on the ground exchanging punches with anybody.
Right. Next story I want to get to here. I just found this afternoon, shortly actually before I sent you show notes. Connecticut is dismissing many more cases than it prosecutes when it comes to gun crimes. And I use quotes around gun crimes because my guns have never committed a crime. But slightly more than 65% of firearm-related charges in Connecticut's court system between 2013 and 2022 were either dismissed or nulled, according to a report by the Office of Legislative Research and Analysis by Connecticut Inside Investigator. Of the 24,078 firearms charges filed for 58 different offenses during that 9-year period, 13,126 were nulled, meaning the prosecutor declined to prosecute the charge, and another 2,632 were dismissed. While the numbers may appear shocking for a state that has focused much of its attention on gun violence and enacting more gun laws, the OLR says that in most instances the charges were nulled or dismissed as part of a plea deal in which lesser charges are dropped in exchange for a guilty plea to more serious offenses. And Dan, I honestly believe that north of 90% of all the laws, like the anti-Second Amendment laws across the country, are only there to stack the deck for prosecutors. It's make a lawyer's life easier deal is what it is.
Yeah. So that may be true. And the question that I have though is, if you or I were, let's say, pulled over and in the wrong state, with a concealed firearm. Let's say we made the mistake of driving through, I don't know, Pennsylvania or Jersey or something, and didn't have our firearm properly stored as per that state's laws. Do you think that they would be as easy on you or me?
Well, specifically on me, they would be looking to make an example out of me, because of who I am. They would absolutely be looking to throw the book at me. And they're going to, with any common Joe that doesn't work for the Second Amendment Foundation, that may be in a area where if they venture into New Jersey and think that their Kansas carry permit works there. Obviously, they don't pay attention here, but if they were caught, what they're going to do, my honest belief is they're going to push it enough so that that person's Second Amendment rights are gone for the rest of their life, even if they were only doing 67 in a 55, and that will get you pulled over every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about that. It's just they're using it for their own purposes. It's awful. There was a woman, I forget her name. She was driving through. I think she was from Pennsylvania, driving through Jersey, and she ended up getting arrested in Jersey and thrown in jail. And just because she was a legal concealed carrier in Pennsylvania, but she wasn't following the specific Jersey law, and they make it's impossible. I tell you what, I drive up and down the East Coast all the time, all the way from New York and even from New England all the way and down into Florida, Arkansas, Alabama, and I drive a lot sometimes. And every state, I have my book and my app on my phone, and I have to make sure that I'm following that state's law with my concealed carry. Whether I can have it in the center console or have it in my belt, or sometimes have to have it in the glove box or magazine out, locked up and in the trunk. Every state has its own rules, and it makes it really difficult to travel.
Well, from New York going south, I would imagine once you get south of Maryland, it gets a whole lot easier.
Yeah, it does. It does. The bad states are Jersey, Jersey.
Yeah.
Jersey's awful. Yeah, Jersey's awful. They make it nearly impossible. But yeah, I think DC, if you have to drive through DC, and I think Maryland. I can't remember what Maryland was. I have to look, but yeah, it's just not easy, and they're all different. And then you get down south, get down to Arkansas or Alabama, and you can wear your 1911 right outside on your belt.
Yep.
So
And
completely different world.
That's the majority of the constitutional carry or the permitless carry states. They allow open carry. So yeah, wear that thing out in the open. In Florida, that's going to get you into trouble, but getting inside the waistband holster, no big deal.
Yep.
I want to get one more. We got 5 minutes left. I want to get one more story in here today, man. This one off of CNN. I'm just going to read some of it. As the Supreme Court justices race to finish up the current term, they will meet behind closed doors on Thursday, and that's tomorrow for everybody catching us live, to consider whether they should add a blockbuster Second Amendment case to the docket for next term. It has only been a year since the Supreme Court issued a landmark opinion that marked the broadest expansion of gun rights in a decade. Can you tell the bias creeping in? Since then, lower courts have been reconsidering thousands of firearm restrictions. In the case at hand, the conservative-leaning Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has cited the Supreme Court's New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin decision in holding the domestic violence-related gun law unconstitutional, a move that critics say will make it easier for alleged abusers to obtain firearms. I'm going to go ahead and stop right there because the article only gets more biased as we go from there. Dan, I really hope they take this up because right now this is very similar to red flag laws. All you've got to be doing is going through a divorce and have your ex or your soon-to-be ex claim abuse, and any judge in the world is going to grant that protection order. And all of a sudden, you have no Second Amendment rights anymore. There's been no laws broken. There have been no convictions, even of misdemeanors, and your gun rights are gone. I hope the Supremes take this up.
Yeah, this is I think you and I have talked about this before. The concept with this is that if you are bad enough to have your constitutional rights taken away, if you've done something so heinous that you lose your God-given right to own a firearm, wouldn't you be in jail? I mean, wouldn't that crime be bad enough to have you put away in jail? See, I don't understand this. They're saying, well, you haven't done anything really bad enough to be put in jail, yet we're going to use it as an excuse to take away your Second Amendment right. It doesn't work like that. Either you've done something really bad, okay, you go to jail. Or you haven't done anything bad enough to go to jail. You have all your rights. They're trying to weave this combination of we think you're going to do something bad, so we're going to take away your rights before you do.
Yeah. We're getting dangerously close to pre-crime, the pre-crime division of your local police department. Michael DeWine says, bingo, Dan, you nailed it, man. So let me get to another one here by C&T Designs and Arms. Alabama has had open carry, and now we have permitless carry, so now we can conceal carry and open carry without having to get state permission slips. Do both at the same time if you like. I mean, open carry your primary and have a backup gun concealed. There you go.
Yep. I like Alabama. I spent some time down there. I like it. Good people down there. I like the gun laws.
Well, we are down at the bottom of the hour, Dan. We've got more stories. I'll carry them over to tomorrow, but we've got to back out of here today. Before we go, if you would please tell everybody about Good Gun, Bad Guy, the book I've got right here in my hands.
Well, that's the second book in the series. You can see those over my shoulder. It's a 3-book series called Good Gun, Bad Guy, and talks about the anti-gun mindset, talks about the media's involvement in changing the gun narrative, and then the third book talks about the politics behind the gun grab, why they want an unarmed population. So it's kind of the rule book that they never wanted you to see. 3-book series, and working on book number 4 now. I suggest everybody go out and get it. It's on Amazon. You can go to goodgunbadguy.com. There are some autographed copies there. Goodgunbadguy.com, and I think you're gonna like it.
All right. One last comment. I've got to be very careful about how I pronounce this one. But CNT Designs and Arms says, rock out with your Glock out. Got to make sure I enunciate that very clearly and correctly. That's going to do it for us today. Dan, again, thank you much, man. And
thank you.
You bet. Everybody, if you're watching us live, thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting, everybody. And for anybody who's listening on podcast, thank you for listening. And we will see you next time.